You ever notice how the things you love the most in someone else's home are never the safe choices? They're the odd little pieces that make you smile even if you can't explain why. The truth is, your place doesn't feel flat because you lack taste, it's because everything in it is a safe choice. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what kind of good weird we're talking about and where to find it, even as a renter who's on a budget. Sup freaks, I think we need to be making our homes better by making them weirder. Let's say you find this inspiration picture and you're like, this is my dream bedroom. This is exactly what I'm looking for. I don't know what I like about it. I just like it. It might be the stunning lighting perhaps, but you try to recreate it. So then you make this bedroom, and this is actually really nice. The bed is pretty much exactly the same. The bedding looks like linen, like high quality. The rug is very similar. The art has a very similar structure to it. You basically nailed the copy and the inspiration image, but it just doesn't feel the same. It doesn't have the same like mature finished look. And you could argue because it's the amazing lighting, which is fair, but I would argue it's actually the sconces. Those are kind of weird sconces. If you saw those sconces at a thrift store, I don't know if you'd be like, oh, this is perfect for this room. You know, they're pretty funky. Let me take these sconces and put them on a thrift store shelf, because that is something that's a little tricky, is like, when you're in the thrift store, you're like, is this a vibe or am I crazy? Also, the rug is a much safer choice than the rug in the inspiration image. I think if you had weird sconces in this image and a weirder rug, that you'd be much, much closer to the desired look. Let's look at some examples and create a list of weird things we're looking for. First up, we have this bedside table. You'll notice there's this funky little lamp. It's bubble shaped and chrome, and I think it stands out from the rest of the design, but it's a bold choice and I think it works. So I think we want to add unusual geometries and colors to the list. This living room has a chunky bookcase with pillar-esque yellow columns. I think it's pretty weird, and I think it totally makes this living room. So once again, weird geometry, weird color. Maybe the combination thereof is good, but I think individually that would also be weird enough. Depends how weird we're starting, which is different for everyone. This one's fun. In this kitchen, you see a bunch of tiny shelves with tiny mugs on them. Clearly this person loves coffee, and they've also created this art exhibit of their collection of mugs. I think what we can take from this is, if you have anything you collect, or just a hobby that you love or a passion, display that collection in a way that feels intentional and tidy. Next up, we have this tower of pots and pans in this kitchen. And I think it works because this person has a fun and colorful collection of pots and pans. Looks like they need the space. And this kind of reminds me of those like CD holders from the 90s and 2000s that are just stacked vertically. We don't store enough things vertically. Freestanding. This one's a little out there, but someone displayed their rock collection as like a wave across their wall. It's just illustrating the point. I don't know, you don't have to do it, but it illustrates the point. So we're adding to the list, storing things in a decorative way. Next up, we have this this little buff arm, this little buff wooden arm. And this is definitely weird. And I think the takeaway here is that we're putting something on the wall that is not just a rectangular framed piece of art. There's a lot you can do with this, and I think it's like the simplest way to add weirdness to your home effectively and easily. Another example, these vintage tennis rackets with buttons all over them. Any sport that you love, finding something vintage from that, putting it on the wall. One more example that would be easy to find is putting a quilt on the wall. Any sort of textile. It just is, it's unexpected. And it's not that hard to find. Plates on the wall, textiles, fun little funky vintage items, little buff wooden arms. So for this one, we're adding hanging things on the wall that are not rectangular. Next up is going to be adding something with patina. Patina is a word for the color change on metal that you see as it ages. And what's really happening is a chemical reaction. the metal is oxidizing and new minerals are forming that have oxygen in them. Here comes the geology degree. Here's a cauldron that's like a textbook example of patina. It's also used to describe the look of age in general. So aged wood, aged metal, other aged objects. A vintage wooden stool is like the perfect, easiest way to add patina to your house. Bonus points if the patina object is functional. Another example of patina I'll share is this kitchen cabinet. So you can see it has significant wear and tear, but the way it's being used and displayed is just very cool. And people might fight me on this one, but I just think that it's so aged, it's come full circle, and it's cool again. So I would definitely say this is another one of those things. If you saw it in a thrift store, you wouldn't instantly think, oh, I need that in my front center in my kitchen. Or you might feel like you have to refinish it for it to work. But if it's aged enough, maybe it's actually kind of cool. If you have a builder grade home with a lot of safe choices, maybe patina is like exactly what you need to add some life and spirit to your space. So patina's on the list. Okay, so I think we now have some ideas of what we're looking for, and then you just have to go hunting, you know. So let's go hunting. Ah, the thrift store, a place that favors the bold dreamers with a bit of imagination. I stopped by Savers in Redwood City and Treasure Paws Thrift in Burlingame, and I'll show you what I came home with. I'll also walk you through a few categories of weird pieces that are usually pretty easy to spot at a thrift store, so you can start keeping your eye out for them on your own trips. To easily find something that fits into the category of hanging non-rectangular things on the wall, I would look into plates and trays at thrift stores because they always have an abundance of them. And if you like the pattern, what a cool thing to put on the wall. I passed on a lot of ceramics. If I can't think of a good use for a little object, I don't really want it in my space, like cluttering things up. I'm a big fan of utility. One thing that I found two of actually is vases. It is almost a guarantee you'll find vases at a thrift store, and when styled correctly in the right space, almost any vase can be cool. This one was a immediate hell yeah. It's just really beautiful, and the way the light shines through this is awesome. And this other vase, it just reminded me so much of the first bedside table that I talked about, where we saw the vase with the interesting geometry and the chrome color. Well, this has a hexagonal geometry and a chrome color, so I kind of felt like I had to try it. This is definitely out of my comfort zone, and some would say potentially chuggy. I thought I could make it cool. And obviously while thrifting, you're gonna second guess yourself and say, is this actually the ugliest thing I've ever seen, or is it the cutest thing I've ever seen? Exhibit A. In my bedroom, in the low lighting, sometimes this almost looks like invisible. I'm glad I took like a tiny risk on that. The last thing I picked up were these candlestick holders because they had a little bit of patina and they're beautiful shape. And interestingly, one of them is shiny and one of them is matte. Not sure what that's about. Some things are just going to be reliably easy to find at any thrift store. These are things you could quite literally bet your bottom dollar on that you will find them at the thrift store. Glassware, vases, plates to hang on the wall, candle holders, like candlestick holders, frames, per my previous email, and the surprising one here, clocks. I found a lot of interesting kind of vintage or just weird clocks at the thrift store. And I picked up this little guy. I do believe I set it to the right time, and then it just kind of changes over time, so I don't think she's abiding by what you and I would call like actual time, but that's okay because she's purely aesthetic. So she sits on my desk now, and I actually really like this. So find a funky little clock. Then I went antiquing to a few different antique shops in outer Richmond in San Francisco. The antique shop is modern day Ariel's Grotto, and you're gonna find a lot of old forks, things with patina, and antique shops. Hand in hand. I found this amazing chess set. Oh my goodness, if I played chess, the things I would do to this chess set. I don't play chess. Something I think you could find at an antique store that you probably wouldn't find at a thrift store is a room divider. I really want to try to use these more in my own interior design. I think they're so chic. This one was made of wood and was like $4,000, so. I didn't buy it. This higher end antique shop also had this massive mineral that looks like mica, biotite specifically. And I'd like to incorporate more large scale minerals into my home that in a non-woo-woo way or in a woo-woo way. I would say I might be more confident in buying a lamp base at an antique store rather than a thrift store in its ability to work. But sometimes they'll let you test them. You can find more than 3 things on the internet, but I'm just going to talk about 3 things you can find on the internet. One thing I might buy online to add to my next home when I move in is replacing some of the light switch covers with new light switches. And I found this website called Switch Hits, and they've got some really cool ones that I like. But I'm not gonna do that I'm not gonna order those until I move in, just so I can like picture it. So if you want to see me transform all the new rooms in this new home, you should subscribe. I have also been seeing little candle stands that you can hang on the wall as like an art piece. And as someone who works with clay, I will probably try to make this myself and probably make a video about it at some point. But Etsy's crawling with these things right now. My final one is a mirror. I don't think I use mirrors enough in design. They're functional too. Like you can check what you look like before you leave the house. It makes the room look bigger. My goal is to use mirrors a little bit more in my spaces. And I found some really cool mirrors that I'll show now that are also on Etsy. Mirrors, wall-mounted candle holders, and light switch covers are my 3 little internet takeaways. So honestly, I didn't get that much really weird stuff, but I'm about to move and I'm just trying to finish this video. So go easy on me. But I think there'll be a part 2 to this one day when I get weirder stuff.